Top of the morning, afternoon or evening, folks. It's Captain Liam from the crew mess here. We've got some lovely crew around me. They're really excited about this live one, and I think they're going to join us here. So by all means, if you want to join, request to join, or any of the crew, put up your hands as well. Today we're talking about relationships, which is a real sensitive one in the industry, and we're going to hopefully have Xanthe from Wave Wellness. Just request to join there. Xanthe, there. And hello to everyone else. Different people there, Nordic Imperial Services, Eastern, welcome. How did you go, Xanthe? Might send you another request.
Yay!
Oh,
There you go. I'm in.
this is trippy, isn't it? Other side of the
Yeah,
world, where are you?
I know. I'm in New Zealand at the moment, so yeah, making it
Oh,
work
wow.
across time zones.
Yeah, exactly. Is the sun just coming up now?
It's 10
Something's
o'clock in the
right.
morning, and it is a beautiful, beautiful summer's day over here.
It does look nice, doesn't it? Well,
It's
it's.
lovely.
I'm in Seattle at the moment. I'm not going to say it's a summer's day, but the sun is out, and that is a positivity. You know?
Yeah, good. You've got to find that in those cooler seasons.
Yeah, exactly. So tell everyone a little bit about you while everyone's kind of joining in, and Captain Scott might join as well.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I'm Xanthe. I'm a Kiwi, obviously from the accent. I've been working on boats for the last 12 years, on and off. I took a break in the middle there for a couple of years, and when I came back to yachting, I realised that there was something that we needed to do better for crew wellbeing. Hey, Scott. Um, and so I started Wave Wellness. So we provide crew wellbeing support on board vessels. We have had the pleasure of working with you guys on Unbridled. Um, and yeah, we can provide crew with mental health support, physical wellbeing support, nutrition, diet advice, all of that sort of wonderful thing. And as well as a bit of financial advice as well. I think it all kind of meshes in together to support mental health as a whole. So
Yeah,
that's
when the
the
boat's in the
focus.
middle of nowhere, like Unbridled in Alaska, we need all the help we can get. You know,
Yeah,
need all the
exactly.
support we can get.
Exactly.
Hello,
Keep everyone
Captain
a little bit
Scott.
sane.
You're looking radiant as always, sir. How are you?
Very good, very good. Glad to be here, man. We made it in one piece, so I'm happy.
Ah, thanks, sir. I just saw a post today of yours which said, "Up, it's going to be rough, but we're going to make it Friday-ish." And I'm like, that's the attitude. Wonderful to
Yeah,
see
late.
you.
It's always rolly at the end there, getting the same marks. It's always it
Yeah,
is what it
exactly.
is. Yeah.
Well, we're talking
Yeah.
relationships at sea, and one of the reasons is it's quite a stressful environment that crew can go under when they're entering a relationship, leaving a relationship. But first, I kind of want to talk about the different types of relationships so people understand. So there's the professional relationship with crew. There's the romantic relationship into crew, and then there's a relationship with oneself. So I don't want people to
Yeah.
forget that. Do you think I covered the different relationships there, Captain Scott or Xanthe?
Yeah, I think
I
so. I mean,
I think there's one more that
Okay.
I think we often forget. And that's your relationship with your shoreside support as well. So your people that are back home.
mm,
That might be your parents, it could be your friends from back home,
yeah,
whatever that looks like, or crew that you've left from other boats, because they do build
True.
a really solid
yeah,
support network as well.
So
valid
it's kind of
point.
four that make up that core relationship, let's
Yeah.
say. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I
So
think so.
why are relationships so tough, do you think? You know, and we'll maybe start with Captain Scott there. Why do you think relationships at sea, whether it's the one at home, the romantic, the personal, the professional, why are they tough at sea?
Well, they can be because, we miss a lot of those birthdays, Christmases, those family days that are really important to everybody at shore. And that's a great point that our shoreside support, because I know all of us here have families and stuff. We worked away at sea and stuff like that. And without that, it'd be much more difficult to be at sea, really. If that relationship was strained or, we were having issues at home that we couldn't necessarily get to. There's been many times, where people have passed away, things like that, couldn't attend funerals or something like that because they're just logistically tough to get there. So that is a very valid point, and I'm glad you brought it up because, you know, the people that are in our immediate families and our inner circle, whether it be crew or families and stuff, people that we need to check in with all the time. Sometimes those get strained just because of the time goes in between our physical contact with them.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And Ira just joined. Ira Waldman, who's a wonderful person from San Diego, but he reminds me that even when I go to sea a lot and I travel a lot, you do naturally forget that support group of your family, your mother and your sisters and your family, your brothers and your extended family. You kind of over rely on that family you build on board. And that family you
Mm.
build on board, it should be your professional family. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
say. I try to take a little bit of emotion out of it because it's a very demanding industry and we live where we work. So sometimes when people say it's your family and you've got to really bond, just always try and put maybe professionalism first. Is that something
Mm.
you think you resonate with, Xanthe, or?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well as having, you've got all of that distance between your shoreside relationships and we miss a lot of stuff and that side of it. But then in the total contrast of it, when you're on particularly romantic relationships on board boats, you're in a pressure cooker. It's
Yeah,
so hard to manage that, you're living out of probably the same cabin, so you're in a relationship and you're usually sharing maybe a bunk cabin with your partner. All of your work stresses are coming home to that
yeah,
cabin to be, pulled apart. All of your social circles with your partner are overlapping. There's no there's no way to kind of clearly remove yourself and separate your relationship from your working relationship. And so that in itself creates quite a lot of tension and a lot of pressure on each individual to both show up to that relationship fully, but also perform like at a really high level. So you both keep your jobs because your
yeah.
relationship is now also kind of depending on you both keeping your jobs. So there's a lot riding on it in those romantic relationships on board.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people, a lot of messages about. What are you going to talk about? I'm like, well, the do's, the don'ts, the positives and negatives. The romantic one obviously is probably top of people's minds because you live at work, you live and work, and if you can have that good balance,
Yeah.
that's the ideal scenario. And I'm
Yeah.
blessed and I'm right. We've got 3 relationships on board, another one has just joined, and he's in a relationship, so it's quite a stable foundation that provides.
Yeah.
But other programs have a lot of single people, and that creates its own kind of tension and stress. But the limited privacy, I think, is a big one in the relationships. The limited
Yeah.
privacy, the limited confidentiality, limited downtime. How do you see these things in yachting, Captain Scott? Limited privacy, limited. How can you thrive in a relationship in that environment?
Well,
What's your tips?
that's really tough because I know my wife and I on, and this is 20 something years ago, we worked together for a few stints here and there, and we decided that probably wasn't the best idea. I mean, it was fine. We did okay, but we're eventually going to building a family and stuff, so
Yeah,
it
it
was a
evolves
lot
into it.
harder. It was more straining on us than anything else because we didn't really have the time that we both needed. We both kind of do our own thing individually. We have a lot of different interests, so a lot of times that can kind of strain the things. And I would say to the point that a lot of people, they think, oh well, myself and my significant other, we're going to get a job together. It's going to be amazing and everything, but maybe not. I mean, it just depends. So I've seen some work out fantastically, and
Yeah,
others just they've kind of took the toll because maybe the relationship was strained before because maybe they were under pressure because they were apart. Then now they're jammed together and then on a full on season, and and a lot of times, I was a lot younger then too, and the way I handled things were a lot different than I do now.
yeah,
Mm.
So
true.
I would say really think through if that's what you really want, because it might be better that you work apart for quite some time until you've both established yourselves, and then maybe you can go on like a job where maybe you have a little more freedom, a little more you're higher up in the
Yeah.
ranks, so you have a little more control of
Yeah,
of where you are and where you're going and stuff like that.
And your relationship's being tested a bit too. Like a lot of the
Yeah,
resumes you get, it says, we've worked together
yeah,
before. So, don't worry, we're okay. I'm like,
yeah,
perfect. But
Mm.
I'm just going to
yeah.
throw it out and be the very, difficult person in the room. Like, I kind of grew up in an environment where if one person had a problem, they both got fired. And that's a big stressor
Yeah.
for crew joining a
Oh
boat. And
yeah.
that puts so much stress on the relationship. So over my years of yachting, I've learned really the relationship does not matter to the boat. It's not the boat's business until it
Mm.
affects performance. And when it
Hmm.
affects performance, I often say the strongest people are the people around that person who can support them and offer them guidance and help. It's not just the fact of you're fired, therefore you're both fired. It's like, how can we help you in this? Where are we struggling? Or how do we adjust your roles? Because I think being married for nearly 20 years, the relationship is the most important part. The boat will
Hmm.
come and go. So
Yeah.
captains who are holding that over people, I don't think that's a very healthy environment to get success of the crew. Now, what do you think, Xanthe? You're in a relationship, correct?
Yeah. So my partner's a captain on a boat, and I
Okay.
am very lucky to be in the position I am, where I am freelancing these days, while running Wave Wellness, and so I bumped into you in Costa Rica,
Yep.
and I've been able to kind of
Then you get to
jump in
wave
and
your
out.
husband off. You're like, off to sea now. Go across the
Exactly,
Pacific.
exactly. I'm like, see you later, Zach. Off you go, back to sea.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a really conscious decision that we made when he accepted the role he's got now. So the owners of the yacht actually asked me to come and run the interior for them, and that was a hard no.
Yeah.
We both know our boundaries. I know that
Mhm.
personally. I know I don't take direction from him well, and we didn't
Very
want that on
wise.
our relationship. Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't work at
And
sea
then
sometimes, Cap, does it? It's like,
No,
no, exactly. And we didn't need that dynamic in our relationship. We're really fortunate. Again, I've been doing this for 12 years. He's been doing it for 15 odd. And so we're in a position now where we can be a little bit more picky and choosy with jobs that we take and things like that. And it's worked really well for us. But I can very much recognize, and I know that I had the same experience when I was younger in the industry. When you're in that new relationship and you're seeing, your partner, I was in a relationship where I was in the Caribbean and my partner was doing a midwinter. And that was a really hard one to navigate because you're a junior crew. You don't necessarily get that much leave. You don't necessarily have enough, funds. You've got to choose. For me, I chose between going back to Europe to visit my partner or back to New Zealand to visit my family. So you're having to make these big choices. There's a lot on the line in those relationships. And I think um like HODs and captains have a lot to understand when they have crew on board who are in relationships, be it within that team unit or kind of further afield. Like you say, it is your professional family, and so you do look out for their like extended needs outside of
yeah.
what's happening within that boat as well.
So then, and me, I like kind of brainstorming, and probably live Instagram's not the place to do it, but
I love
that's the vulnerability that
it.
I've kind of
why
challenged
not?
myself with. Yeah, yeah. So, why does it matter then? Like, why does it matter? I mean, I had someone call me this week who said they're on a boat. All of a sudden, they found out that person was in a relationship, or that person was of a certain type of relationship, for want of a better word, and then they were discriminated because of that. And the vessel
Mhm,
didn't have an inclusivity program or understand that person's relationship, whether it's different sexualities basically.
Mm.
So
yeah,
I'm thinking, why does it matter? Like why? And this is why I
yeah,
kind of got into this topic: is why should relationships matter? A captain has no business in knowing what your personal life
Yeah.
is unless it affects his professional life. But in yachting, I think because we're in such a little petri dish, and I often
yeah.
say 1 year in yachting in a relationship is like a cat's life. It's like 7 years, and it wears on
It
you.
is.
So,
It is.
uh, you know,
But
I
I,
think it, I think it matters because you're in that petri dish, and then people love
yeah,
gossip. Not
Yeah.
saying below
they
deck.
do.
When I see a crew member walk off with another crew member up the dock, and maybe they're holding hands, naturally you're like, that's interesting, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
But
the
I also
excitement,
think
maybe.
itinerary comes into it a lot. I know captains who have done the Pacific trip And when they leave the Caribbean, they're like, we hope that everyone's still single, because when they get out into the Pacific and they're in that isolation, you you end up with crew members that are now pining after a season that they've had, or a season that they've left behind. And so you kind of almost lose them to a social media hole, or constantly calling on FaceTime and kind of lusting after something that they don't have immediately, and they stop enjoying where they are, if it's the wrong the wrong fit. It's not everyone, but I think I know captains in the past that's one thing that I've really taken into consideration, is actually our itinerary is going to be really remote. Sure, Starlink is great for it these days, but it certainly wasn't when I first got on boats. But it's kind of like trying to make sure that everyone that's along for the ride is having the best time that they possibly can, and it does play into it.
What do you think, Scott? Like you know, when you employ people, do you go down? What's your experience?
Well, first of all, I don't really care too much about what they do in their personal life. That's their own deal, unless it affects the rest of the boat. If it's something that spills over into it's drugs or whatever, or it's their mentality is my way or the highway, where everyone has to be with whatever they're doing. But I don't, I think it really matters, that the person really wants to be there, whoever they are, whether it be a Pacific program or a Caribbean or Med or what have you. If they don't want to be there and they're already kind of checked out and they're there for the paycheck, it doesn't matter what decision you make or try to help them. If they've made their mind up, it can be tough to really. And I think at that point, you got to kind of think exit strategy of what, hey, how can we help you get where you need to be? Because obviously this is not working out. We'll let you hang around until we figure out what to do, get somebody else in, or get you where you need to be. Because if they're just kind of dragging around and missing home or missing where they are, then there's nothing I can do to really. I can try to cheer them up. I can crack as many jokes as I can, and I think I'm pretty funny, but I'm not that funny.
You just did this thing on motivation.
You know your limits.
Exactly. This thing on motivation and all the factors of motivation, and one was humor. One's discipline, and a lot of serious things, and one was humor and positivity. And I said, I think that's the best. To keep people motivated, you can just be lighthearted. And, have a bit of positivity, you can get through some really tough days. But I don't want to discourage people from relationships in yachting. They be positive. And like some of the pros is, let's talk income. If you can have both people working on the same vessel without any external expenses, it's huge. If you can align your goals and, speak to Captain Scott here about real estate, you know what I mean? Or speak to some of your resources at Wave Wellness, Xanthe, about investing. Then you say, okay, let's work for 2 years. I mean, what would you rather, work on the mines in Australia or work on a...
I know where I'd rather be.
I mean,
so that's
if you do
positive, and you've got support.
If you do it right, and I've seen many couples do it, and they're really good at it, and they're able to. They have that dynamic where they can work together, and I've had them, great crew members that were couples that really killed it. They saved up their money for a few years, and then they moved on. They moved up to the next position where they actually started running their own boat and their own program and stuff, and they kind of took and run with it. It can be a big positive if they just go into it with that mentality that they have a plan, and hey, I'm good at this, you're good at this. It's they have their own team dynamic within their couple and stuff, and that's it's pretty tough. I think you got to be a certain type of people to where you're both good at that. Like I know myself and my wife, we're a great team and everything else, but thrown in the box there, we can get it can get a little heated, but that's nothing against either one of us. It's just we both have our ways, and that just is what it is.
So we're talking about pros and cons in relationships. We'll go to you, Xanthe, in a second. But I always tell people that the ocean's going to bring out the truth. It's a real eye opener. The ocean,
leveler.
That's the word, the leveler. It's like And a lot of times when people join, I'm like, just don't pretend to be anyone else but yourself, because
Yeah.
in a week or two, in a month or two, in 6 months or two, that armor that you're putting on is going to be stripped down to the actual human you are. So build the human up as your own armor, build your own personality. And if you're not fitting in with crew, that's okay. Find another program or just accept that. But be yourself, number one, you know?
Yeah.
So what do you think of some of the positives, Xanthe, before we go into some of the negatives? And hello from Philippines there. We've got a grumpy engineer, grumpy yacht engineer.
What a handle.
What a grumpy yacht
engineer. Perfect.
Brilliant. That is brilliant.
Hope
And
he brings a significant other.
Oh no. And
All right,
I
good
think,
resist.
like you're saying, the financial stability of having two people employed on a boat is massive. But I actually think, similarly to how you say 1 year on a boat is 7 years in real life, it's the same for a relationship. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly very, very, very quickly in a relationship on board. There is no privacy, like we said, which means that things do come to the surface really quickly. You are pretty quickly thrust into understanding exactly how that person operates under pressure. You see them in a professional sense, you see them in a personal and a social sense. And I think all of those little parts of those interactions, especially in a new relationship on board, I think we look at yachting relationships and we're like, oh yeah, that was just a quick fling. But I think what you said earlier, you're really onto something there, Liam. Is that, you know, it's not the same timescale as dating in a normal environment and the rest of society. It's everything is all thrown into this one thing. As my partner always says when he's, you know, having any of these situations on board, if you put sexy people in a boat, they're probably gonna get along pretty well. And
until it doesn't.
Yachting.
Well, then you're building something.
Exactly.
You're building a team. You're building relationships there. And sometimes when you get to St. Martin, like Captain Scott just did, and the crew are like, we're going to celebrate a passage. And they're like, that's a good idea, but maybe not a great idea. So you don't want to stop the crew from doing that. But the amount of times I've been to St. Martin and had my crew be destroyed by relationship issues in St. Martin, in Lauderdale, some of the worst places I get to call. Sometimes I just get an anchor for the first night. I'm like, sorry guys, go out and get a hotel or whatever you want to do. Keep it off, because I want to keep safe. You know what I mean? Keep the crew safe. Or I give them a last 10 o'clock tender call. I said, be on the 10 o'clock call, and they all call up, say, we need another 2 hours, or you know, it's like But there's definitely pros of relationships. Like, I've been so lucky the people I work with, and we have boundaries and we discuss these things. And I really tell them, just try not to get involved in your partner's professional relationship with her team. And that's kind of my tip while we're talking about this, is because I see too many times that, let's say a stewardess has an issue with a chief stew, and it's tough and it's hard to navigate, and that's stressful because neither of them are getting fresh air. So it just compounds day after day. And the deckhand's out there singing and laughing and on jet ski. And the boyfriend comes in as happy as he can be, walking into a situation where the stewardess is just in tears. And so how do you navigate that? So I encourage them not to get too involved, but be the support. Ask for help. If your partner's in a situation where she's in tears, that's paramount. Like, that's a problem. And you need to then reach out to the captain or speak to your head of department and say, look, this is not a healthy situation that's happening here. Can we talk about it as a team, or can we address this? So there is positives. Let's talk about the negatives, though. And negatives, and I'll start with the uncomfortable one. One doesn't work out, the other one's got to go. That's probably the reality in 80% of the boats, would you say?
Yeah. I would say, unfortunately, both, 9 times out of 10, both of them usually end up going if you get rid of one. I mean, that's just been my experience. For me, it's been rare that one of them stayed unless they were checking out from the other person anyway.
Which I think we should look at changing, but that's their relationship too.
I think that's also, there's a little bit of if people are hired as a couple, they're typically fired as a couple, right? Whereas
Yeah.
if that relationship, because then there's this, the other side of the relationships of when two people hook up on board and you end up with a new relationship on board with two existing crew members. And from what I have seen, the most part in my career has been that a lot of people kind of turn a blind eye. That relationship starts to fall apart, and a lot of people are like, right, well, someone, it's like you almost get to like a deadlock, Mexican
Yeah.
standoff. Who's going to quit first? Are we going to
Yeah.
make, we don't want him on board anymore, so we're just going to make it a little bit uncomfortable and hope he gets the squeeze out and he moves on to something else. And to be honest, I
You
think that's
understand
awful.
it, Xanthe. You understand it's a battle, isn't it? It's a
It
real
is.
topic.
It is. And I think that's a really awful situation to be in for everybody on board. It's hard on the rest of the crew, not just the HODs or the captain. I think that's really hard on everyone else that's trying to exist around that, because there's a lot of kind of conversations behind closed doors, and there's a lot of, uttered comments. And I think that's something as an industry I think we need to do better at.
Yeah.
And there are boats that I know for that exact reason. They have a don't screw the crew policy, and it is blatant. If two crew members are hooking up on board, that's it. You're both out. You're
We're
done.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, as much as I'm like, oof, that's pretty brutal, and it is getting involved in someone's personal life. But if that's a rule,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a rule.
that's the
I
rule.
believe I think it's contractually in some contracts as well. I forget
Yeah.
what ours is on board.
Yeah.
But there is
Yeah, some are.
interpersonal relationships, and my kind of policy, for whatever it's worth, is I just believe in transparency. I really do. I
Yeah.
just be honest. Because,
Yeah.
some of the negatives here that we're going over just quickly of relationships is zero privacy, arguments follow you everywhere, crew tension, your relationship affects the entire team,
Oh,
professional
yeah.
conflict, breakups on board, career risk, where all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
going boat to boat and these relationships are following you. Or your relationship is on the boat next to you, your ex-girlfriend, and the current one's on this boat, or whatever that is. So it's really a topic that I don't think people talk about enough, because it affects the success of the team. And that's where I'm trying to come from, is how do Captain Scott now, how do you work with your clients and build these great teams that can give owners and clients the real results without having them to deal with, oh, those a couple now. Oh, that's exciting. Because
Yeah.
guests love drama too. You have
Yeah.
to remember.
They do. They do.
I try and block my crew. Do not tell them there's dolphins out on the starboard side of the bow. When they start
Yeah.
asking about your personal life, tell them there's dolphins. If I don't see the dolphins, keep looking. Don't
Yeah.
let them get into your personal life, because it snowballs a little.
Well,
It's not about
when it gets a little too personal, it ends up being people start taking liberties with or without doing it on purpose, and that's when I tell people, the crew especially, like, look, they might be friendly, but they're not your friends. You're there to work for them and give them the best experience. And if it's, with the crew and stuff, if they're hooking up and doing whatever, until it starts affecting the other crews and there's a lot of drama, I generally try to stay out of it and not let them handle it as adults. But a lot of times, generally, it doesn't. That can kind of backfire too, because that it does affect people, like the talking behind closed doors, the drama and stuff like that. But at a certain point, if you see other people kind of affecting them, you pull people aside and say, hey, you need to kind of cool this down, or you need to figure out how to make this to where it's good for everyone else. And if you pulled them aside and told them that, and it continues, then you got to say, well, if I have to get involved again, then we're going to have to make a decision here on moving one way or the other. It's nothing personal or anything, but it's affecting everybody else.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And the work on board, and that's what we're here to do first.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of started off this conversation with my advice is just professional. Number one, stay as professionally as you can. And if you think walking down the docks holding hands with someone you're not in a relationship with is professional, I don't think that's correct. Keep it away.
You wouldn't do that in the boat. You wouldn't do that in the office. I mean,
yeah, because
that's
also
that is
exactly in the corporate world. It's not on. There's also what I'm learning about all these chats and check-ins is There's also that power struggle on board
Yes.
boats where people take advantage of that power they have, whether it's a captain, and I've heard that we're the worst, which is good to know, but it's also better that we're on the front of it and not defending it, but saying that's not right. That's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah.
You know, what
Yeah.
can we do as an industry that captains do not have the ability to take advantage of anyone, whether it's physically,
Yeah.
emotionally, financially? We shouldn't have that type of control. Our control should be professionally based, getting a result for an owner. That's our business, and
Yeah.
keeping the crew and the yacht safe. You know?
And I think that's where like management. I think you both probably know Kaylee from Hill Robinson.
Yes.
She's fantastic. Shout out to Kaylee.
Yeah.
She actually recently said at the Super Yacht Forum that her goal when she got into working in crew management was to ensure that HR was something that was implemented in the yachting industry, and that is exactly it.
That's the lie.
It shouldn't be something that the captains can decide whether someone is hired or fired because they're in a relationship. We need to have more HR style management coming into vessels so that people actually have someone outside of that, because hierarchy is super important for the safety of a vessel. We need to know, as crew, we need to know that you guys as captains are in charge, and that authority has to be there. However, we also need to have that safe place, that safe person that we can go to raise a grievance. And it isn't really being covered at the moment by DPAs. And I know there's a lot of work being done by management companies to raise the bar, is actually what they're calling it, to kind of encourage that more. And I think that is something that will change drastically how we treat relationships and how we treat personal grievances and things like that on board. And it really will change the way that power dynamic sits with captains and junior crew and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it takes the weight off a lot of what, you know, Captain Scott and I end up doing, because a lot of it is human resources, which, you know, I'm not trained as. And I think there was a Yacht International Radio just did a post for, and Ray is wonderful, with the lady off Savannah, the chief economic officer or chief, I forget what her name was. But she's really created one of the greatest human resources applications, in a sense, on Savannah to get the longevity and measure that longevity of crew. One of her
and that
things,
is
though,
a vessel that is absolutely smashing it. They've done phenomenal work with their crew well-being and support.
But one of the things they do is they don't employ under 25. And I heard that, and I'm like, okay, well, that's good to create a good corporate structure and sustainability, but where's the generational growth? Where's the challenges? You know, whereas I like employing younger people that are somewhat green and new into the industry, and I want to try and show them that there's a nice, healthy environment where you can learn, you can grow, you can be positive, because the other environments I hear are not that positive, and that's a shame for me. So there's two sides of it, plus longevity. 6 months to a year, I'd say, start to look, because you need to grow at the start of your career. Seed time and grow.
Yeah. And I think that's a tactic, right? Like, you're either going for, right, our vessel is our priority and we want to have crew that are going to stick around. They need to have world experience. Because you can have a green crew that's green decky that's 26, 35, any of those sort of things, and they could be fantastic, but it is about getting like that world experience, is where I can understand that, like, lower age, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can understand just having that knowledge of interpersonal relationships as like a major part of that, and having a really good sense of self and understanding who they are and how they respond to different pressures or stresses or different environments.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I always, I don't really try to put any real like age or type or whatever on it, because I always look at it as like everybody gets a shot. Whoever shows up gets a chance, because there's a lot of times how it looks on paper is completely different than what that person is. Because I had somebody that didn't really have much experience. She had some customer service experience, but she didn't have any real boating experience or anything. But she had a great personality and she wanted to work. Like, and that to me, that would supersede anything. And I've had older people that hey, I quit my corporate job. It's 30. I'm 35. I'm a, deckhand. What do I? But they knew how to work, and
Yeah.
and they knew how to learn, and they learned quickly because they knew they had to, and they had to outwork a guy that's 10 years younger than them.
Yeah.
So
True.
it really kind of depends with those things. But with couples and stuff, a young couple, that's going to be a different scenario entirely.
True. We just got
Yeah.
Soggy Dollar Skipper join us, and I'm sure he's got some stories. He sounds like he's been at the Soggy Dollar Skipper. But feel free
Good
to
Martin, here
reach
we come.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully he's not there now.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts then, because we want to try to hit some action points for the people listening, because I've had a lot of feedback from these check-ins, and they say people watch them not live, but when they're stopped recording. You know what I mean? A lot of times people look back. So one of the action things, and firstly saying this, if you're in a situation where you are either being sexually assaulted or abused or in an environment that's stressful, you need to reach out. You have to reach out. And you cannot handle this internally. You need to externalize it and get tools to help. Doesn't mean there's a problem with you. You need to get tools. People like Xanthe at Wave Wellness, you have wonderful psychological psychiatrists, correct? Or psychotherapists?
Yep, psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist. 6 or 7, I believe now.
Around 12 now, around the world.
12? Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the Wave Wellness.
Yeah, and they're all ex-yacht crew.
Oh, perfect.
So they know
we're
what
good
it's
with
like.
problems of the head. I think after a couple of years in yachting, everyone's like, this is I don't want to say the F word, but divine the yachting world. So reach out to Wave Wellness. It's a great program for the yachts. It's a membership-based program, which makes it a little bit lower cost in terms of the entry, and then the crew can evolve as they need to evolve, and it gives them a space. So Ice One, Yachty Minds Matter, Captain Scott, myself, we can help you in directing you in certain paths, but reach out, because we don't come to yachting to be in situations or see crew in situations that aren't positive to the professional and personal growth. So the do's: communicate clearly. If you're in a relationship, communicate clearly. Be professional. That's what I always say, especially during working hours when you're on the boat or in eyesight of the boat. Maybe that's a tip.
Yeah.
Do you think eyesight's good enough?
Yeah.
You're outside eyesight, you're outside uniform.
Definitely.
I'm not saying do whatever you want, but that's your space exists outside that, professionally. Set emotional boundaries, especially with your partner, especially with the people around you. Have a plan.
Yep.
If you're in a relationship and you say this is getting tough, how about we ask for holidays in a month or two and we take a break from each other? Because so many times crew are in a relationship where they're like together and then they're taking the holidays together, and it's like, there's no break.
It's unhealthy.
It's unhealthy. Yeah, because it's just too much on top, and it's the old cat years we talked about. So a lot of times with crew, I'm like, you're on holidays, don't have to be together. Take leave without pay, take holidays apart, go to your courses alone, get as much space as you can. Sometimes, join the boys.
It's not about not wanting to be with that person, I think, as much as it is about like keeping your own identity and doing things that serve you best.
Yeah, I agree. True. And Captain Gareth just joins. He's a wonderful man, and he's been in yachting a lot of years, another Aussie there. But put safety and professionalism first. That's another tip for the do's in the relationships. And check in with each other regularly. Keep your identity intact. Keep your identity, who you are. If you do yoga in the morning, you go do yoga. If you want to surf as a male crew or female crew, you go surf. Sometimes in relationships, I see, Scott, is they get in a relationship, all of a sudden they're both closed in this relationship. Yeah. And neither of them are happy because they're not doing what they want to do. They're not doing the girls' nights or the boys' trips or the whichever they.
Yeah, they feel guilty that they're not hanging out with the other person, and they're not doing they're not working out, or they're not going for the hike, or they're not going and doing those things, because I've seen it many times, and I was like, hey, you guys, I've said this before on here, where like if I see people hanging out in the crew mess too long and they got the day off, it's like, you guys need to get out of here. Just separate.
Please leave.
You can always be here. When we're working, It's
Yeah.
fine for you to be here or whatever, but just go. You know, there's a whole world out there. You don't necessarily have to go to the bar, but you know, if you want to, that's fine too. But you know, there's a whole mess of stuff you can do outside. You know, just go walk around. You might
Yeah.
find something that you might like. You know.
Well, I'm going to
Yeah.
show you
That's exactly it.
how live this is. The crew are doing a drill.
Oh, they're
So they're
doing
just
drill.
setting up. They're
Hey, do
just
I need
setting
to call
up.
you an evac? Do I need to call
No,
you
they're
an
just
evac?
setting up the side of the road. I want to make sure
Nice,
that.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
nice.
Yeah, perfect.
Mm.
All right.
On your
So
on your list
what are
of
the other
do's,
dues you think?
yeah, I've got one that kind of plays into that last one of keeping your own identity intact. I think it's nurturing your other relationships in your life.
Yeah,
So don't put
Yeah,
all your eggs in one basket. You need to make sure that you are looking after yourself. You're keeping your relationship with yourself. So if that is that you need to spend an hour every morning to do yoga or go for a surf or go running or walking in the evenings, whatever it is that kind of builds that relationship with yourself and maintains that, that's super important. Call your mum. Call
yeah,
yeah,
call your family.
call the people that are outside of your environment. Make sure you're getting outside perspective on what's going on the boat. Sometimes your world can feel so incredibly small when you're on board, but it's really, really helpful to tap into those other relationships in your life and bring that perspective into what's going on board. Just being
Yeah,
able to like nurture those relationships and not just, yeah, put all your eggs in that one relationship of a romantic relationship on board is really, really crucial.
yeah. I would piggyback on that because I know what helps me a lot, whether I'm at home or here. It's during COVID. We started a family Zoom call just to check in with each other, just to
hold
make
on.
sure
We're
everyone
setting it
was
all off now.
everyone. Oh no! Somebody didn't
Oh
move quick enough.
no. Tuesday drill day.
Tuesday drill day. Yeah. So yeah, we do the family Zoom, and I recommend if you know if you got other family members, we started doing it during COVID, and when we started it just to check in with each other, see if anybody needed anything, and everyone was from all over. And then I would
Yeah.
recommend you doing that, you know, once a week with your mom or you know your dad or you know your uncle or whoever, your brother or sister. You know, maybe
Yeah.
set up a scheduled call with them, and that might get you through the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's super
exactly.
important.
I think that's what you and I started as Captain Scott too. It was
Yeah,
like, let's
yeah.
just check in. It was,
Hey,
I
I
want to
love
start up on a
this.
boat show or something. So,
Why didn't we
yeah,
do this earlier?
yeah, exactly. And I think it's good for the industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have it once a week, like tomorrow. I think it's Wave Wellness. Not Wave Wellness. They're doing Yacht Medic. They're doing a thing in
Yes.
Fort Lauderdale, which is
Oh, okay.
wonderful.
Yeah.
They're doing a thing
Yeah.
in the EMR or P66. I think it's P66, where they're having kind of a
Yeah.
yoga session. They're doing
Oh,
B12
cool.
drops and Ron at Yacht Medic. So I'll send that in the stories too.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
the don'ts. We've talked about the do's. Let's talk about the don'ts. Don't involve other crew in your relationship. That's probably my first one because I always say boats have ears. Boats have ears. You know what I mean? And I'm into crew mess now, and people know me. I'm transparent. I say what I think. That's pretty easy, but I don't involve other people in my relationship with my wife. That's my business.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one. Don't hide the relationship. If you're in a relationship, you kind of don't have to go to either extreme. You know, don't
Mm.
Yeah.
pretend you're not in a relationship. A lot of times in crew mess, people, you can see they're together, but they don't want to communicate they are. And sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
lasts 2, 3 months. And I'm like, eventually someone's going to come to the bridge. Like I know someone's going to come to the bridge and tell me, and I just tell them, who wants to say anything, say it. And so just be communicated clearly. Don't let romance infect your professionalism. Don't weaponize rank. So because you're in a relationship with another person, and that's something I probably want to touch on briefly here, although I'm not in that position too, meaning this captain-wife relationship. I've never really kind of gone down that path in my career. At the start of my career, I was, working as a chief officer with a captain in a relationship, and it was difficult. And
Hmm.
Mm.
all the crew joined, but it was very difficult to kind of always be able to speak to the captain directly without this, the wife or the partner influencing his
Yeah.
decision. So from
Yeah.
that point, I kind of decided, look, in time, the best captain I can be is the one available for everyone. And even if my partner works with me, I have to keep that separate. Would you both agree
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I
It
think
100%.
doesn't seem
that
to be a healthy thing for the junior crew to see that.
Yeah, they
no,
have to see the separation between personal and professional. That's the only
Yeah,
way you're going to set that example.
yeah.
yeah,
And,
and I think there's a very a strong narrative for the captain's wife.
yeah,
And I think that, that is actually something that, like, I take it quite seriously when I go on to Zach's boat these days, because there is there's this weird kind
yeah,
of behavior that then shifts. It's all of a sudden you're not the stewardess on board, you're the captain's partner.
yeah,
And so you become, it's this whole other, you're not the captain, you shouldn't have that seniority, but all
yeah,
of a sudden, because you are dating the captain, if you then step yourself up above your rank, it
yeah.
really creates these undertones on board that go through the whole crew, and
Hmm.
both as a captain and as a partner, that you have to figure out how to manage that, because I think it
Yeah,
is one of
we're
the most
getting juicy
toxic
now.
things on board.
This is getting real juicy. This topic, right? I'm sure that I'm seeing the comments there, like, like so. But I think the important thing is it also happens if you're a junior stewardess or a male steward and the female captain is senior. That
Yep.
different relationship there can also be very difficult. So
Mm.
once again, this doesn't happen in the corporate world. And that's why this is unique. So there's no real guidelines to what's right or wrong. It's
Well,
people
it
like
does,
us.
Liam.
Well, it
You just
does
get
happen in the,
fired very quickly. HR
yeah.
Oh
get
yeah,
involved very quickly.
true. There you
Well,
go.
and depending on the company too, like their policies or whatever, there's been many times where the boss is sleeping with the secretary, and everyone knows, but no one
Yeah,
says anything,
yeah.
and that kind of thing, or so
But
it's
in the end of the day, it doesn't create a good working environment, and that's the
no, it
point.
doesn't. It
And that's
doesn't.
kind of why we're talking about this. Is if our goal is to create a good, well working environment with good leadership, and that's what crew are looking for, and we're happy to do that. You have to also understand the negatives of the relationships you're in and how that affects the team that people like myself and Captain Scott and yourself are trying to build. So you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't just be this happy, beautiful young crew member in all these relationships and then blame the
Mm-hmm.
captain when the crew dynamic is not working out.
Absolutely.
When
Yeah.
the captain's like,
Absolutely.
probably shouldn't have been doing the type of things you're doing, at certain times. So it's definitely two
Yeah.
ways. And then the other one I tend to think so is don't isolate yourself. And you mentioned this, Xanthe, kind of on the opposite spectrum, meaning that when you leave the Pacific, some of the boats, like, I hope you're not in a relationship because the Pacific is remote. When you're in a
Yeah.
relationship, don't isolate yourselves. Still be a part of the team because we're trying
Yeah.
to build
Mm.
a cohesive team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be an issue because, like, if you have the balance can be off. If you have a couple of different couples, it can get quite cliquish between the couples and the non
Yeah,
Not.
the singles and the junior crew. Because a lot of times people are a little bit older when they're in couples and stuff like that, and it can
Yeah.
get certain people can get left out, and so finding the balances can be pretty tough.
that's the tough thing, and that's
Yeah.
why we're talking about it, because there's no magic, there's no book about it. There's no collision regulations about relationships in yachting. There's a lot of talk. I mean, I think I've had two books now, Melanie White and then Erica Lay. I've both read those books, and I've got some great advice, but neither of them kind
Yep.
of really give what's the cut and dry. Should you be or should you
Yeah.
not? So I think what
Maybe
we're
that's what
doing,
we need, Captain Liam, is the
I mean,
coal rigs for collision
for
requirements
relationships.
for
Yeah,
No,
relationships on board.
relationship collisions.
yeah, yeah. Well, here's another point I kind of came up with: tools for stronger relationships. Communicate your intention. Protect personal time. Learn conflict resolution. But these are things that are
Mm.
not just relationships in the romantic sense. These are kind of leading towards where I want to go towards, is building that team environment. And how
Yeah.
can we discuss conflict resolution? And a lot of things that I've learned is just be transparent in the front end. What type of leadership we're looking at when you join a program, and then also the boundaries you need to establish for all the crew members, and say it. This is a boat that if you're in a relationship, it's okay. We'll support that. But before you
Yeah.
join a relationship, there is positives and negatives, and let's have that conversation because it will affect the team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
setting
And
those
I think,
boundaries.
yeah. boundaries and like communication is like the nail on the head there, Captain Liam.
Yeah.
It's,
That-
if you can have that communication and two-way communication between leadership on board the vessel and those people who are, those new employees, whether they are
yeah.
in a relationship or not. Yeah, trying to navigate that is so much easier if you guys can communicate expectations and boundaries both ways.
Okay, yeah, good point. We've got a couple of questions here. One from a Super Yacht Services guide, Caroline. Do you ever get a mandate from owners re relationships on board between crew? You're saying yes?
Yeah.
I say
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
lot of owners like the drama and guests like
Well,
the
I've
drama.
had them say they don't like couples on board. I've had some say
Okay.
they would prefer to have couples on board, but I
yeah.
usually just tell them that, well, we're going to get what we get that's going to build the best team. You know,
Yeah, well done.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to do either, force it to go one way, because then you're going to end up with a bad team that, it's great if the owner likes all of them, but if they're not a good team, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you're one of the best captains out there, Captain Scott. I think you've got the ability to
Employ
navigate the
the
difficult questions.
employ the best people for the job. But I think
Yeah.
Caroline does hit something quite interesting, because I know on smaller yachts, like I've done a lot of work on even 76-foot sailing yachts, so little wee ones,
Wow.
and they're often run by a couple.
Yeah,
And I've come in and filled
that's
in
true.
for a vessel that I've worked with for years. I've come in and filled in for the chef stew deck, which is always a fun role to fill.
Yeah.
And really fortunate that me and the captain are close friends. So when I jump on board, I don't mind the fact that we have bunk bed, our bunks touch. So like
Wow.
two side by side. They can be a double bed when it's a couple, but you just pull the little triangle at the bottom out and they become separate beds, with our pillows side by side. So in those situations, I think, there's a real reason that they're like, oh no, we need to fill that with a couple. We need to we need to have a couple on board, because
True.
again, that power dynamic plays into it as well, which gets a little bit
Well, you see it in the ad.
could be a little questionable.
Like in yachting, you see couples wanted, or male because of cabin arrangements, or no couples, and this is what's kind of wrong about the industry, because in a professional environment like a corporate world, you don't have that. You don't have pictures of the people as the number one thing. You know what I mean?
There's no way you could do that. There's no way. You could have pictures of people like, well, it's not about what you look like. Well, then why is there even a picture there?
Yeah,
I know.
At the very top. At the
Yeah.
very top.
I remember when I got into the industry, 12 years ago now, and we had to have our height, weight, hair color, and eye color on as a stewardess on your CV.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't fly. Why are we asking those questions? So there's some pretty crazy areas of the industry that kind of lend themselves to.
It's a very unique industry on how we've set the criteria and what's acceptable, which is not acceptable anywhere else. But if any one of these guys that we've worked for in their companies, if they did that, they would have so many lawsuits against them.
This person reached out to me this week saying just that as soon as that person found out about their relationship or sexual status, they were fired. And I'm thinking, that's so wrong. It's got nothing to do, and the person's a hard worker, and it just doesn't make sense. But there's another question, Escape Scout there. I had to share a cabin with a girl, and now I'm married to her. Okay. That's an exciting. So I don't know where we were going that.
Nice.
So there you go.
Oh, no.
But I've heard of other situations where there's married couples and they're kind of asked or forced or encouraged to share cabins, and that's kind of wrong too. So another question I have is, can love truly thrive in the yachting environment?
Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful world. You just have to know the positives, negatives.
Yeah. I think you just have to work like everything else, like every other relationship, you have to work at it. It's not, there's no easy way to do it. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Some days, you're going to feel like everything's falling apart, and other days it's going to be fantastic. But if you just treat it like you're going to, work at it and you're committed to being there, then everything will be fine.
Oh, that's wise
Yeah.
words there, Captain. And that's kind of what I wanted to finish on is a bit of positivity that relationships can work. They are
Hmm.
healthy. It is a perfect balance if you can make it work. You just need to know, I think the key points for me, and we'll go around the room here, is boundaries and communication. I know I'm stealing the easy ones here, Xanthe and Captain Scott, but for me, just boundaries and communication and stay professional. And that's my advice for any crew joining any boat in any state of a relationship, whether it's romantic, professional, or internal with yourself. Know your own personal boundaries. If you're not a drinker, don't go into that path of drinking with crew. You know, if you're in a relationship and you need to know your boundaries of that relationship. So, in closing, what's your kind of final thoughts there, Xanthe?
I honestly, it's keep the rest of your relationships thriving. If you
Okay,
can
good
nurture
advice.
all of your relationships to support yourself, we all know that if you're standing on one leg, you're not very stable. If you've got both legs on the ground, you're going to be a lot stronger. And it's like that with relationships. If you're just depending on that one person for all of your emotional support, it's not going to be healthy for you as a person. Your own relationship with yourself is going to fail, and your relationships around you are really going to suffer. So make sure that you're nurturing and watering all of those other relationships, and that will help get you through that romantic relationship and living on board with that person, because it can be the most rewarding situation to be in. Although I do love that we've just had a message from Mel saying the trauma bonding can really can really
I saw
really
that. I love it.
increase the love.
I
And
love it.
I must say, Mel, I do agree with that.
That
Trauma
is,
bonding.
you bond over the trauma of a season where it just didn't end. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, you're together. But she's got a great book. I've got it in the bridge there and a little how-to as well. So huge shout out
Fantastic.
to Mel. And that's the Marathon for Mental Health, which will be another one next year too, I hope.
Nice.
It wasn't a whole marathon in one go. It was broken up. And I was like, oh,
Oof, yeah.
each day. And then
Achievable.
someone else, yeah, Sea and Suitcases is back. I think we had them last week as well, which is great to see you again. And you made a comment I'll put out. Yachting offers the best dating spots ever. That is true.
That's true.
St. Tropez, St.
No lie
Barts.
there. No
Yeah.
lie there.
Romantic dating at 101 right there. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you ride the marina at St. Barts and you take your partner out. It's a good way to wine and dine them.
Yeah.
And then what about yourself, Captain Scott? What's your kind of go-to there? It's getting dark there quick, is it?
Yeah, it's getting dark. I should turn the lights on, but it's all right. Yeah, it's coming down quick. But no, I would say just stay yourself and whatever you come into, just be open and try to be your best and be the best for your partner and your crew members, and you'll be fine. And just leaving with the words that somebody told me a long time ago is like, just always remember, everywhere you are in yachting, you're in an interview.
Wow.
You're walking out. You're
You
walking
are.
down the dock. You're in working with certain crew members. They're all going to talk about you later on after you're gone. So if you treat them your best and you treat people around you the best, and you try to treat your significant other on board the best, you'll probably have the best relationship.
Well, that's why I say boats have ears and boats have eyes.
Yeah.
And if they don't see or hear it, I'm sure the crew will make it up anyway. So
Yeah. They'll fill the gaps with whatever. They'll fill the gaps with whatever they want.
That's why I focus on professional. Anyway, I had Alex join from Grand Yacht Crew, the team at Resolve, which I just did a great course with. And then, but once again, thank you so much. Your advice and Xanthe joining was really world class. I cannot thank you enough for joining. Your wisdom, your knowledge, and also your platform of Wave of Wellness, I think, is second to none, and it was great to be a part of it. Especially in the Alaska season when there's not many resources out there for support.
Oh yeah.
And then, and your advice of having, which you did resonate many times, and said it's not just the 3 relationships that I'm talking about. The 4th one is the external relationship with your family, the people off the boat. And I'm a big believer in third-party oversight onto the boat to support the people from an HR perspective, that they're not always coming to the captain, because the problem may be the captain. So have someone to go to that you can discuss matters that don't affect your employment status, and you can get tools with. you know. And then Captain Scott, always a wealth of information, brother. Every
Thank you
Tuesday
so
is
much.
becoming my favourite day of the week now.
Me too.
How can everyone find you, Captain Scott?
You can find me on LinkedIn or investwithscottkid.com. Scott Kidd, you can look me up. I'm there. All my podcasts and everything are there on my website.
Yeah. Well, and then I saw the mountain trip. You know, you're crossing the ocean, and then hopefully you get into a mountain soon.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna hike as much as I can while I'm here.
Yeah, and yeah, and
Brilliant.
so in St. Martin. And Xanthe, yourself, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, no, I am at Wave Wellness on social media, so feel free to reach out to me on there. There's links in my bio to my website, and by all means, please feel free to send me an email or fill out an inquiry form on the site if you are in a management position on board. So if you're a captain or a vessel manager, please feel free to reach out and we can see how we can help you guys support your crew.
Or any crew reach out to you and just and annoy the
Yeah,
captain or head of department and say, we need this. We need wave wellness. You know,
absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
ocean's beating us. We need support here. And for myself,
Yeah.
I'm Captain Liam, at Captain Liam, I think it is, on Instagram. Relationships can work in yachting. I've loved my relationship with my wife for nearly 20 years now. I met her through yachting, and I'm blessed to have that. And I've seen some beautiful things in my time at sea. So be safe, be blessed, be yourself. And until next Tuesday, enjoy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Captains.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
See you
Exactly.
next time.
See you all.